Hello and welcome to this tutorial on creating a clock using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. In this tutorial, we are going to break down the code that creates a clock with a sleek design. Now let's get started with the tutorial. Now, the first thing you might notice here is that I am using an asterisk selector. We set the paddings and margins of all the elements on the page to 0. We also set box sizing property to border box, which includes padding border in the element's total width and height. Next, we set the height of body to 100 viewport height units and set the background image with a linear gradient. The linear gradient is set at an angle of 135 degree. Now moving on to the HTML code, we create a div with a class name clock. This div element consists of 3 child elements. We assign an ID of hour, minute and seconds to each of this div. These elements will display current time as a digital clock. The hour, minutes and seconds are separated by a span element which consists of a colon. We now style the clock using CSS. We start by setting an width and height to the clock element. We then center the clock using position absolute and transform property. We also make use of top and left positions. You can now see the colons on the screen. We now make use of flex layout to space and position these colons along with the digits. You can't see the digits now as we will be creating them later using JavaScript. For now, let's just style them. In the next step, we style each of the digit element within the clock and also the colons between the digits elements. We now use display flex along with align items to center and justify content to center the digits inside the white boxes. Currently, the digits are not available. As I have said before, we would be generating them later using JavaScript. Here we make use of box shadow to make the boxes pop up from the screen. Look how adding a little bit of box shadow makes a huge difference on the white boxes. We style the columns by setting the font weight to 800, the font size to 2.5 em, and color to white. You can use any colors or fonts of your choice. Next, make sure you include this line of code inside your HTML code. We now implement the logic of clock using JavaScript. We start by declaring initial references for hour, minute, and seconds div. In the next line, we set up a recurring timer that will execute a function once every 1000 milliseconds, that is, once per second. We name this function as time and make it repeat every 1000 milliseconds, that is, every 1 second. Now, inside this function, we create a new date object. This date object represents the current date and time. We use getHours function to get the current hour from the date object and store it in a variable called HR. Similarly, we use the getMinutes and getSeconds function to get the values of min and sec variable. Now, let us console log these values to see if they are displaying the time correctly. We console log the values of HR, min, and sec. We can see these values are console logged every 1 second, and this time matches exactly with the time in our computer. In the next line, we convert the HR variable to a string and ensure that it has at least 2 digits by padding it with a leading 0 if necessary. We use the pad start in similar manner for min and sec variables. Now that we have obtained the time and formatted it in a way we want, we display each value in the corresponding div element using the text content property. You can see that no values are displayed in the white boxes. So let me check the console log. The console log shows some error. So we haven't added the function round brackets to the toString function. Again, there is no value displayed for seconds. Let us again go back to the console log and check if there are any errors. As expected, there are errors. There is just one error, which is type error, which usually occurs when we use a value in an invalid way. So we probably have used the wrong ID while declaring the seconds variable. I don't see any mistakes in spelling in the script page or in the JavaScript code. So I think probably we have missed something in the HTML code. And yes, we had misspelled seconds in the ID. Our clock is now ready. The time in a computer matches with the clock, which proves that the clock is working properly. You can now go ahead and customize the clock the way you want.